Hello again, old gun guy here with part 2 of my basic firearm terms and nomenclature. Mostly aimed at a novice or a beginner, just hearing some of these terms. First, I'd like to go over sight pictures on a firearm. You got iron sights. They basically come in several varieties, but I will try and demonstrate on this board here. Okay. The top figure here, you have to pardon my artistic skills here, is a typical iron sight you find on a pistol or rifle. U-shaped notch rear sight, and the dark, solid black color is the front sight. A proper sight picture would be the 3 ears of the sight, the 2 rear and the front one, all even and equal amounts of light between the 3 arms, and obviously the top of the sight centered on the target where you shoot at. Some people use I don't go into that, but on a bullseye, you can put this at the top of that at 6 o'clock, it's called 6 o'clock hold, or center of the bullseye. A sight variation that is a V-notch, the rear sight, front sight post, and the back sight is a V-notch, and popular in a lot of European rifles, and they're harder to see, a lot of tangent sights, like on the AK series rifle or Mausers. The bottom one would be an aperture sight. You would find them on a AR-15, M1 Garand has some of the finest aperture sights made. Yeah, M1A, M14. It's a post. The rear sight is a circle, an aperture, and you center the post in the aperture. Optics, scopes. The top one would be an example of a duplex crosshair reticle in a scope. Optical scope magnifies your ability to see targets at distance. It's usually listed in multiples of magnification. For instance, a 3x9 power scope, the low power end would be 3 power. That means it's basically 3 times what your naked eye can see, three times the amount of resolution. Obviously, the other end, 9 variable scope, 9 power would be 9 times your vision. For instance, what your naked eye sees at 100 yards, if you had a scope tuned up to 9 power, a similar object at 900 yards would appear the same as it would to your eye at 100 yards, roughly. The middle one's another example of a hunting reticle, a German post, big thick post and a horizontal crosshair, very good for fair shooting in brush. And the bottom one is, I butchered a little bit, it's a crosshair with mil dot reticles. They were first made popular with the military, very useful for range estimation, windage estimation. I'm quite fond of them. But that's just some examples of your sighting systems you're going to find on just about all firearms. Optics. We have red dots, which are non-magnified optics. They can put a magnifier behind them, but you usually get a dot. It looks like it's projected in the air, optical illusion inside the sight. That's your aiming point, and their dot size is usually listed in minutes of angle. A 2 MOA dot, a 4 MOA dot, 5 MOA dot, and basically that means minutes of angle. A minute angle is roughly an inch dispersion at 100 yards. If a complete circle is 360 degrees, you have 60 minutes in each degree. Yeah, I think I got that right. The angular dispersion at 100 yards is 1.047 inches. That's exact. We round it out to 1 inch at 100 yards. So a dot that's 2 MOA would cover 2 inches of the target at 100 yards. A 5 MOA dot would cover 5 inches at 100 yards. 2.5 inches at 50. And as you get closer, it's less target. You get further distance, it covers more of the target. Rifling, you hear twist, fast twist, slow twist. What kind of rifling does my firearm have? Pistols and rifles all have rifle barrels. They impart spin to the projectile to stabilize it. The shorter the projectile, as a general rule, relative to the bore, the slower the rate of twist it takes to stabilize it in flight. For instance, a 45 caliber ACP bullet, the rate of the rifling twist would be 1 turn in every 16 inches of forward travel. So when the bullet has moved forward 16 inches, it's completed 1 complete revolution. The original high ballistic coefficient, or a long bullet, a long rifle bullet, a target bullet, a 6.5 pre-born, like 140 grain projectile, requires a fast rifling twist. It's very long, the projectile, relative to the bore. So you're talking a 1 in 8 twist. So 1 revolution, 1 complete rotation for every 8 inches of forward travel. In the 223 Remington 5.56 realm, there's a wide range of rifling twists. When the M16 was first adopted by the Air Force in '63, it had a 1 in 14 rifling twist. It would stabilize a 55 grain bullet in most conditions except Arctic conditions. They found that out later on, and they increased the rate of twist to 1 in 12. So every 12 inches the projectile traveled, it made 1 rotation. Kind of like an NFL football quarterback throwing a pass. The football rotates, rapidly as he throws it, and it makes a stable flight to the receiver. It's the same principle with a bullet. As the AR-15/M16 platform evolved, the military went to a heavier projectile, longer projectile. They had to go to a faster rate of rifling and stabilize it. The M16A2 or the A2 ARs, the later variants, not from the 60s, in the 1980s, they went to a very fast twist of 1 in 7 inches per rifling rate. Every 7 inches, the bullet makes 1 revolution. Now, why that's important is some projectiles, being spun that fast, will come apart. So the 223 can be loaded with projectiles suitable for varmints, very lightly constructed jackets, 40-45 grains in weight and mass. If you fire them at a high velocity, at a, say, 3,400 feet a second, out of a very fast twist barrel like a 1 in 7, the rotational forces could rip the bullet apart as it exits the barrel. It just self-destructs from the centrifugal force. You have to remember, a 1 in 12 twist 55 grain AR-15 bullet is doing about 180,000 revolutions per minute, RPMs. Your car engine idles at about 600 revolutions per minute, and it'll probably start coming apart at 6,000 revolutions per minute. This is going a whole lot faster, 30 times that. Now when you get down into the range of the 1 in 7 twist, the projectile's been subject to like 330,000, 340,000 revolutions per minute, and that's a tremendous amount of rotational centrifugal force on a projectile. That's why some projectiles, if they're overstabilized, they're not very accurate. Your loops open up markedly. Some rifles will shoot very well. It depends on the projectile, the rifle. They're all individuals. I have this Sierra. It's an empty box. It's a 224 projectiles, 22 caliber for the 223-556, 69 grain Sierra match kings, hollow point boat tail match. They have in red leathers the twist that the bullet will stabilize in, 7 to 10 inches. So if you fire these out of a 12-inch rifle barrel, they're not going to stabilize. They're going to not hit with your aim at, just going to fly off, start tumbling. One of the best bullets for long range for 223 is this 69 grain Match King. I've shot it out to 600 yards, and it's extremely accurate. The round doesn't have much punch at all at that distance, but you can punch holes in a paper target at that range all day long with this, the proper gun. That's it with the rifling. You hear a rifling twist, and you'll hear things like effective range, point blank range, maximum range, these terms bandied about. Effective range is basically how far the firearm you're using can accurately strike a target. So for instance, in competent hands, most modern service style handguns have an effective range from 50 to perhaps 70 yards. You do have dedicated handgun hunters, trick shooters that can hit a target at 100 yards, 125 yards, 150 yards with a handgun. But that's generally the maximum effective range. So it varies. In a novice's hand, the same handgun might have an effective range of 5 yards. Beyond 5 yards, they can't hit the target because their marksmanship and their gun handling techniques have not been perfected yet. So effective range varies widely. Maximum range of a projectile is a whole other matter. Generally, if you fire a firearm, you angle the barrel from the horizon anywhere from 33 to 39 degrees, and it's different for each firearm and cartridge. That will yield its maximum range. It will fly through the air before it strikes the ground. To use a 308 rifle round, 7.62 NATO, a 308 with 180 grain Spear boat tail soft point hunting round leaves the muzzle of the rifle about 2,500 feet a second. If you angle that rifle up the barrel about 38 degrees relative to the horizon, the projectile will travel about 7,600 to 7,700 yards, and it could kill somebody at that range. Not accurately, but as it comes back down in its ballistic flight, that's its maximum range. There's 1,760 yards in a mile, so you do the math, you're talking 4 miles. For about 4 miles. Spear, one of the newer hand-loading catalogs, they also have the maximum vertical range. If you fire the gun straight up in the air at 90 degrees, how far in the air will the projectile go? And for that same load, velocity, it will achieve a height of about 16,000 feet, so 3 miles straight up in the air. And you hit an aircraft that high, by accident. Point blank range, you'll hear that bandied about, and that varies in definition too. In the military, a zero would be where a soldier just aims his sights at, say, center mass of an enemy soldier, human. The bullet will not travel above, say, 6 inches above the line of sight or below the line of sight in that envelope of point blank range. So one of my red dot sighted ARs I've sighted at 36 yard range. The bullet crosses the line of sight at 36 yards, and basically I forget what the second zero crossover is, but basically if you have a chest hold on someone 0 to 300 yards, it's going to hit someone in the torso. And that's a maximum point blank range for a .223, and that's about really all the .223 was ever designed for: 0 to 300 yards encounters. As goes back to the Second World War, they're thinking when they invented the first storm rifle, as it were. That's going off into the weeds a little bit. Say a hunting rifle, you don't want the projectile going 3 inches above or 3 inches below the line of sight on the way to the deer or the elk or whatever big game animal you're taking. And that kind of point blank zero or range will suit you hunting. The 180 grain 308 hunting load, the 180 grain bullet I mentioned before, has a maximum point blank range in that parameter, 3 inches either way, above and below your line of sight, to about 250 yards. So you can basically aim at the deer's vitals, the chest, 0 to 250 yards, and you're going to put it right in the vitals and stop the animal, put the animal down. So that's what people are referring to range, point blank range. Another definition is where the sights, you're close enough where the sights and the barrel, they're parallel to each other, where you could shoot and it would directly hit the target without dropping below a certain point, below the line of sight. So you can get in the weeds of that, but generally that's a good thing that you know. You want to know where your backstop is. You know, obviously, whatever you're shooting at, because 7,600 yards is a very long way for a projectile to go. And most of the high-powered rifle projectiles will travel 6,000 to 7,000 yards. Some even further. Some of the magnums with high ballistic coefficient bullets, but I'm not going to go into that right now. I believe I went into the weight. There'll be a bullet. I don't think I had the first one, but mass. In the U.S., it's in the Troy system. Grains. Grains is a unit of weight. In the metric system, would be grams. For instance, a 380 bullet projectile, 92 grains equals about 6 grams. There's 7,000 grains in a pound, 437 grains in an ounce. So, for instance, a 115 grain 9mm projectile weight is about a quarter ounce of mass. The 230 grain 45 caliber ACP, automatic Colt pistol projectile, is a little over half an ounce of mass. Also, obviously, if you get into reloading, all the powder charges are listed in grains, which is weight, and that's what they're referring to with their grains. Grains is of the bullet weights. And then you get into each caliber, what's a useful bullet weight, there's a range there. It's all listed in grains. And I'm trying to think what else I could add to this. I know I forgot something in the first iteration of this. But this is just basic terms. You don't have to be an expert in all these terms. Just if you walk into a gun store to buy a gun and the guy behind the counter starts throwing all kind of terms at you, which he really shouldn't. He should help you out and explain to you, especially if you're new. These are some of the things, what they mean and what they affect. Rifling rate twists are very more important in long-range shooting and in shooting rifle bullets. Most of your handguns have a standard. They have short, stubby projectiles. They're really short-range weapons or guns, 100 yards, depending on the caliber. Obviously, some of the Magnum handgun hunting cartridges, you could stretch out with a scope further distances. I'm talking about the regular, common run-of-the-mill 9mm, 40, 45, .357 Magnum, 38 revolver, all the common calibers that people would first purchase, possibly inherit, or shoot. And I think I'll end the video there. I think as I do any of the gun review videos of explaining the old guns, displaying them, I'll probably add terms. And when I do that, I'll explain it then, rather than put it in one large video. But that's all. Old gun guy here. Good evening.